Hi. So welcome to this live streaming on work permits. I've been away from YouTube. It's been quite busy for me lately, so trying to get everything done. So I've launched two streamings, one today and one next Monday, and it will be about how to laser focus to get leads online, because really networking is happening mostly online these days. So I want to give you some tips on that. So on today's topic about work permits, I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up of what to expect, 2021 type of information, because I have done videos before and it hasn't changed drastically, but there's just a few things I wanted to pinpoint during the streaming. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is about the market, the Swiss market, and what is the state of things. So as you know, right now, it's quite challenging worldwide. The crisis is still there. It's been there for years. So obviously that has consequences on business. Some businesses have been closed for a long time or are not operating 100%. So maybe jobs that were planned are not going to be recruited for. So it has an impact on the Swiss market. So right now, the only three sectors that are hiring or where you can find some opportunities mainly are healthcare, tech, and IT. So these are the ones where you will find jobs if you go on the job boards where you can still apply. Now, anything else around that, maybe more what I call the mainstream jobs or the corporate, middle management, etc. There's less demand. So, and if you're not in Switzerland already, it's going to be more complicated to be seen, to be interesting for a company. So definitely, I would say those three sectors are out there to recruit, and this is where you have the most opportunities. Now, if you're not in these sectors, I think it will be a little bit more challenging. Now, going on to permits. So what kind of permits are available in Switzerland? What's the status on work permits? So the first thing is really, I will make the differentiation between EU and non-EU, as I always do, because I think they're two different categories. And that's how the Swiss operate, is that they have the EFTA EU nations, and then they have the what they call tier. So third tier is basically all the other countries, basically. So you have to keep that in mind when you're considering Switzerland, that it is organized in a specific way for different countries to get work permits. So for EU citizens, basically, your first option is that you have a 90 days option to look for a job. I usually don't recommend for people that are not border workers to come to Switzerland and hope to get a job, because 90 days is not a long time. So if you have to come to Switzerland and look for a job for 90 days, that goes very quickly. So if you have expenses, that can be a little bit challenging, especially right now as the market is going through changes. So, but it is there. You have a 90-day window where you can work in Switzerland without a permit as an EU citizen. I will post the link below where you can register yourself. So what I usually suggest is for people who are consultants or working with Switzerland and you don't need to be there all the time. I'm an example of that, or someone maybe works mostly online and you just go to Switzerland to meet clients or vendors or something like that. That's perfect, because 90 days gives you a lot of time. Now, if you're planning to work, whether it be in a short-term contract or medium-term contract, like 12 months, obviously 90 days goes like this. So yeah, the only way I would advise is if you're in the border, for example, of Switzerland, you want to commute, maybe do a very short-term assignment for less than 3 months, then I would say the 90-day window is enough for you. But again, it's not going to take you very far. So that's the first thing. The second type of permit is the G permit. So once you succeed the 90 days, or if you get a job from abroad for a longer term, you get the G permit as a border worker. So if you're around Switzerland, you get a G permit. So you come back like the pendulum, we call it, you go to work in the morning in Switzerland, you go back in the evening. So that's the case for France or for Germany. A lot of people do this kind of pendulum type of scenario. So that's the G permit. Then you have the B permit, which is really for expats coming to Switzerland. again, you get a job and you relocate, and you get a job offer, and you stay in Switzerland, so you get a B work permit. After a while in Switzerland, 8 years, you can start applying for your C permit. So that's going to be something that takes you to more permanent type of residence. So you can check into that, and once you're in Switzerland, you get a C permit. So really, you have a step-by-step almost, if you want to look at it as an EU citizen. So first you have the 90 days window, then you have the B permit, and then you have the C permit. So it's really step-by-step. So that's it. Again, I would always suggest to get a job first, because that makes your life easier, knowing that you need to pay for expenses and everything like that. That would be my recommendation. Now, for non-EU citizen, it's always more tricky, because the options there are a little bit more tricky. If you're a non-EU citizen, then you have to find a job with an international organization. So the options I just mentioned about getting a B permit or all that is going to be much more challenging with the private sector at the moment. So I know I've talked about this before, where people say, what if I'm a student and I come to Switzerland and maybe I get a job offer? That's the ideal scenario. But again, it would be really the ideal scenario, meaning that it would be a coincidence that a company needs your skills, and they can't find anyone on the local market, because they would have to prove that. So they can't do anything that they want. A company would need to prove that they can't find anyone on the local market before they can hire a non-EU passport. So again, those chances are really slim. So what I usually recommend for expats is to find a job with an international organization. This way you're not competing on the same footing as locals. You're in a completely different sector, and you won't have a work permit issue. So everyone that contacts me from abroad looking for a job in Switzerland who's a non-EU passport, I immediately say go for international organization without a doubt. Occasionally, I hear some people in tech who can manage to find a job as in the private sector with a non-EU passport. But again, that would be more of the exception than the rule. So that's why I don't like to give too much hope for people who say, well, I just come to Switzerland and get a job in tech. I've tried this before also with clients, and the company told me we're always going to prefer someone who's already in the Swiss market and who already has a work permit. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're waiting. Is it worth it? What are my chances? Which is usually what people ask me. So when you're doing your assessment, again, as a non-EU passport, I would say focus on the international organizations at the moment. Again, you also have to remember that in Switzerland, there's quotas on permits. So it's not an unlimited resource, meaning that if you're at the beginning of the year, there's going to be more available than if you come at the end of the year. So that should also be something you take into account when you want to relocate. Maybe you want to relocate more at the beginning of the year when there's more work permits available than at the end. So I will post the links below so that you can check this on the official narrative, and you can really read through in the details, because I'm giving you just the headlines, but you want to research maybe more for yourself. So you will have that below where you can click on the links and read more about the process, the criteria. Also, there's some links where I found what do you need in your file to be taken into account. So in Switzerland, you need to file for a work permit. So that's the company doing it, but you need to understand the process to know, okay, if I come to Switzerland, what's going to happen to me type of thing. Even though you're not doing it yourself, your company would file for you. So as an individual, when people ask me, well, can I file for a permit myself? The answer is no. You would have to have a reason for being in Switzerland. Either you relocate with a partner, you found a job with a private sector or with an international organization. So there would always be a reason why you're coming to Switzerland. But you saying, I'm going to go to a lawyer and apply for a work permit on my own, I would strongly advise not to do that. I've known people who tried and it cost them a lot of money and they weren't successful at it. So again, the benefit risk type of thing, for me would not be necessarily a good idea. The law firm would probably tell you the same thing ahead of time. If they're doing things ethically, they would probably tell you your benefits also and whether it's worth it or not, based on your status, based on what you want to do. But my preferred way is definitely to have a job before you relocate. And that's actually for any country, especially now with the situation, and it's a little bit complex now. Most companies are not necessarily heavily recruiting. You definitely want to secure your relocation with something tangible. And again, it would be a bit risky to say I'm coming to Switzerland and hope for the best. I have a question from Corinne. I'm a non-EU citizen. Thank you for that very important tip. Focus on international organization and start at the beginning of the year. Thank you. Yeah, so we're still beginning of the year, kind of March. So if you want to find a job, that's the best way. I have a listing that I will post below as well to do a quick search on the international organization, because for some professions, you may find that it's not exactly the same thing. So if you work in sectors like finance or HR, which was my case, it's a little bit easier to transition over to anything. But if you're highly specialized professional, you may not find a lot that you could do in international organizations. So it has to be transferable, basically. If you're a sales, let's say you're a salesperson in IT equipment, that's going to be hard to find the same thing because international organizations are mostly, humanitarian and working on missions, with health, with, all these things. So again, there's not always going to be the case. You can always try to train yourself in something new as well. If the relocation to Switzerland is a need for you, let's say you're following a partner and you need to be in Switzerland, or for whatever reason you need to be in Switzerland, I would say consider training yourself in international organization, business or type of work. Now, I wanted to talk about quickly the Brexit, because I know a lot of people are curious to know about it. What's happening to me. I'm a UK citizen. What's going to be the next thing? So there's basically two options if you're a UK citizen. Either you secured your relocation before end of December of 2020, or you're still looking right now in Switzerland and you haven't secured anything. So if you're already in a secure position, meaning you found a job, you relocated, you're in Switzerland before end of last year, then you find everything is going to be basically, I call it grandfathered, meaning that all your benefits, all your acquired rights, your permits, everything is still there. But if you're looking right now to relocate, then you're considered a non-EU citizen. So as of 1st of January 2021, you're going to be in the part of non-EU citizens, meaning that you're going to do what I just said. Probably international organization is your only sector that you can secure something. So it's changing things a little bit, because before, as an EU citizen, you had access to more opportunities, I would say. But now, being a non-EU, then it's the same thing. Companies would have to prove that they can't find anyone else, and they have to build a file and explain, etc. So would they be willing to do that? Probably my answer is no. So so instead of going through the rejections, I would say just cut through the chase and apply directly to international organizations. So it's really a question of choice. I know people, think, well, I'm great. I can find a great company that wants to hire me. I have great skills, and I'm not questioning that. But it's just a question of, the legal environment and the permit environment. So it's not saying you're not good. It's just that for a company to bring you over, the criteria or the justification that they would have to make is just not possible. So again, it's always been, whether you're EU or non-EU, it's always been people that are in high demand and there's not enough potential on the local market. Now, you have to understand, in Switzerland, it's not so much a professionals market. I mean, you do have management and professionals in general, but you have to understand Switzerland also needs, I would say, more of the blue collar type of work. So a lot of people come to Switzerland also for those jobs, for blue collar jobs. So that's also a need there, and that's not necessarily what people watch my channel or also are looking for, but that's a reality, is that you may not find the type of work that you target in Switzerland. When you look at the job boards, you may see, well, they're looking for nannies, they're looking for people to work in the hospitals, etc., as a helper. That's not really my field. So that's why you have to check also a little bit what the market needs. But really, where you're considered non-EU now as a UK citizen would really shrink. What it means is that it really shrinks your pool. So where you would have had maybe a bigger pool before last year, now you would have to be ultra focused if you want to get something. So again, rather than trying to face walls by trying to say, well, but I'm great, I can find a company, let me send my resumes to headhunters, that's going to be a bit of a waste of time, because the headhunters will be stuck with their clients because the permit will be immediately a wall. So you're not going to be very successful. It's going to be frustrating for you. So rather than to burn the bridges with all these people, better focus on, going straight to something that's viable for you. So again, when I talk to individuals, I know it's a very, very small sector there, because we're talking about, in the international organizations, maybe 5 to 7, maybe big international organizations. The other ones are not big enough to hire globally, so they're still under the local rules. So it is a tiny, tiny market. But they have a lot of jobs. That's the good news. So if you target the UN, if you target the World Economic Forum, there's the Red Cross, they have a lot of positions. So there's not a lot of organizations you can target, but they do have a lot of positions. And by being super focused and really understanding what they want, you have a better chance than trying to send everywhere in Switzerland to all the companies and hoping that your passport won't be an issue, because it is. And it will be. So, better go into it with the eyes wide open and say, okay, I only have 7 organizations I can work with. I'm going to be super focused on them and understand what they want, build my resume for that, or train myself if you don't fit into exactly something that's a immediate match, rather than just to spread large, and to hope that you get lucky. And again, I'm not saying some people don't get lucky. I have examples also of good stories, but it's like, what's the benefit and the cost of all that, of waiting for months and months until you hit your luck? I'm more of a person who goes at it with structure and rationality than, okay, let me just send everywhere, pray and spray and pray, it's not really working well. Okay, I've got a question from Anka. Hello, Isabel. Nice to see you again. How about the situation when we have a founded company in EU country and we want to develop the business in Switzerland? Okay, that's a little bit more of the entrepreneurial side. So if you founded a company in the EU, it depends what kind of company. Sometimes you don't really have to do much. I mean, you just market in Switzerland and you don't have to do anything in the legal format. I mean, the only time you would have to do something with the legal format is if you really want to have your company based in Switzerland. So that's always the question mark, is do you need your company to be based in Switzerland to do business? It could make sense if you sell something that requires a lot of trust. So I know for some businesses like finance, banking, all of those, people won't work with a company from abroad. They would want to see you have an office in Switzerland. But if you sell, I don't know what you sell exactly, but if you sell products, sometimes it's not necessarily a need that you have an office in Switzerland. So the first thing is to say, do I really need an office in Switzerland? Because you could be living in Switzerland and have your business set up. And I've had people who did this in the UK, for example. So you are living and everything in Switzerland, but your business is set up in the UK, or it's set up in France or in Spain or wherever. So it doesn't really matter. I think it matters when there's a trust issue where people would say, well, I can only buy, or I would only buy from local businesses. And again, it depends on the type of thing. Anything that's really highly regulated, People would trust more local brand. Now, if you're selling general products, people won't care as much. We're in IT and we would like to have an office in Switzerland. Well, I would test the market first a little bit, because opening an office in Switzerland will have a big cost to it. I mean, in terms of registering your business, if you want to have an office, then it's, of course, you have to get rentals and all that. So first test to see if you have a market. Are people interested in your product? You know, you can now, with the startup models, you can do maybe a small commercial online and see if people are interested, maybe call a few people in Switzerland or a few leads and see if they're interested in the product. If you get a lot of interest in the product, then maybe it's worth relocating. Maybe you already tested that and I'm just not aware of it. But first is test your market before you want to start something there. And if you see you get a lot of traction, what I call, meaning you have interest, then you open the business. So that's how I teach how to start a business in Switzerland, is first testing the interest, testing that you have, potential clients. Now, the only exception, again, as I say, for some type of businesses, you can't really start anything until you have an office. It's a reputation issue, it's a regulation issue. So you have to go through that first. But if you're not really in those highly regulatory type of businesses, you just test your market and see. I've worked with entrepreneurs, for example, in the web business. So they contacted me to see if they could get clients in Switzerland. So they tried to see if they get interest. The Swiss like to consume or to buy locally, usually. Again, it's a trust type of thing. But I don't know what you sell in IT. Maybe it's something that's highly interesting and maybe not developed in Switzerland. So you would have to see, how special is your product, where you would get interest in Switzerland before you go full-fledged office, registering and all that. The other thing is that to register your business, you would need to show anyways that you have some kind of clients or interest. You can't just go there and say, hey, I want to open a business in Switzerland. So, now the authorities are getting a bit more detailed in what they need, because again, a lot of people would just come and say, hey, I want to start a business, give me a work permit. So you would have to justify that. I believe it will be in the links I post below. It tells you exactly what you need to provide, like a business plan and potential for growth, etc. So it's not going to be automated to start a business. So I don't know if you wanted to start a business as a way to get a permit, or if it's just part of your business plan that you want to expand in Switzerland. But either way, you would have to justify it to the authorities. Okay, Tanya is saying, I'm an EU citizen with PhD in chemistry, looking for a job in German-speaking Switzerland. What should I be careful by applying as a regulatory affair quality manager? So you have a PhD in chemistry, looking for a job in German-speaking Switzerland. What should I be careful by applying as a regular? I'm not sure you understand the question, what you should be careful of. Well, you should have a ready-made Swiss profile, meaning CV should be Swiss style. You should understand a bit more about what companies want, so that you can have a resume that matches their requirements. And also the next thing is to have to build your profile to attract those kinds of organizations. So you have to understand what in the Swiss market, in the German-speaking Swiss market, what are those kinds of companies looking for at the moment? What's the big skills they want? What are people who are working in those companies? How did they build their profile online? To try to mirror that a little bit with yours. So there's a big job about profiling yourself for the Swiss market. So it's not just hoping, okay, I'll have my profile the way it is, and again, the spray and pray and hope that for the best. It's like you have to go at it as building a project. So what is the market needing at the moment? What kind of skills? How can I showcase that in my profile? So the whole idea of showcasing your skills or your potential to the organization, and that's really working on branding yourself online. Which again, a lot of people branding themselves online, just maybe they have changed their title or something like that, but it goes more in depth than that. It's really more of the psychology almost of the organization to understand how they think, what kind of companies what kind of employees they want. So doing research on their career site. You're going to be effective if you can understand your target very well. So study your target, study the companies you want to work for, and try to connect with people internally would be my best option rather than sending resumes, because sending resumes has its limitation these days because everyone is applying right now. So your chance of going through the ATS, it's a little bit like your chance of getting a work permit with the private sector. If you're non-EU, it's the same thing as applying through the applicant tracking system. It's very, the return on investment is very low. So I look at job search the same way as I would look any kind of business as an entrepreneur. What's my best return on investment? So what's going to be giving me the more for my return on investment out of the work that I do? So meaning if I spend 10 hours applying online and I get no returns, I've just lost 10 hours. Now, if I spend 10 hours trying to get leads online and I get one lead, and this lead is going to offer me a coffee online or an information interview, and I get some news about the organization, that's a little bit of a return on investment. And of course, what you're looking for is a job offer as the best return on investment, but that's going to take time. But I find that most people right now are just applying online and they get zero return on investment. So at some point, doing the same thing and not getting return on investment, you should question mark, maybe I should use other tactics if I want to move forward on my project, because in 6 months, I will be in the same place otherwise. So again, my advice would be build your job search strategy, build your profile, do things that not everyone is doing, meaning applying online, and you can get some leads that way. Yeah, so I didn't see your message, but I already knew it. I'm already applying, but not getting much interview. Is it a problem because I live in Vienna? Yeah, not being local right now. Again, companies are focused mostly on the local market. It's a multiple reason for that. The Swiss have an ethical, I think it's really in the culture. The Swiss do have an ethical allegiance to the locals. So it's something maybe you don't see in other countries. In other countries, it would be whoever is the best person for the job. But really in Switzerland, they do consider the locals first. It's an allegiance to giving jobs to the locals and providing for them. The Swiss also want a lower unemployment rate in their canton. So the political, economical, everything is really geared towards catering to the locals first. So it's built in the culture. So if you're foreign and you're abroad, you're already at a disadvantage, I would say, on the local market. So that's why I always tell people, come to Switzerland when you can. Try to localize yourself by spending time. Maybe right now is not ideal, again, because of the situation, but in the future. So really, the more you're close to the local market, the better your chance. So if you're in Vienna, it's going to be harder to sell yourself, basically. So that's why I'm teaching now people to do it online, to network online, and to try to get leads online. But sometimes also you need to put a lot of effort into that. So it's like, how much do you want it really to get this job in Switzerland, and how much are you willing to put yourself out there in the LinkedIn and get those leads? Because that's really the only way now in 2021. I don't really believe in sending resumes, and I'm really trying to get people away from that to get the better return on investment. But it's not easy, because obviously I can completely understand that it's less scary, less risky, less scary, less challenging to send a resume on an applicant tracking system, because you're never face to face with a human being. You just send a resume and you let the company almost decide when they want to talk to you. So the comfort zone there is much more. It's just much more comfortable for the individual. Now, if you go and build your profile on LinkedIn, try to find names of people, go to human beings directly, then you're out of your comfort zone. You're in the risk of getting rejection. So you have to go through a certain change of mindset where you can be okay with that. I still get rejections or people not responding to me, even though I do have a network and I message people. Sometimes they do answer, sometimes they don't. It's part of life. But for me now, it's not really a problem because it's just part of what I do. And I understand the 80-20 rule, meaning that whatever you do in life, 80% of what you do, you're always going to have almost a 20% return on investment. So if you message 10 people, you know that only 2 will reply, or maybe 5, 50%. So that's how you have to look at it in life, is that you need of a funnel so that you get a few replies. So what happens with most people when they start networking online or trying to activate their network is that they would go with, well, I messaged one person and they didn't reply, so I don't know what to do. That's not going to bring you results because that's too small. It's like saying, well, I started an exercise plan, so today I just exercised for 5 minutes. And you know what? I don't see results. Well, it's going to take more than that, especially if you have to lose several pounds or several kilos. So it's the same thing with networking online, is that messaging one person is not enough. So you have to message at least 20, 30 people to get maybe 1 or 2 that reply. So especially if you're not used to it. I mean, if you're a bit more comfortable with the exercise, you can increase that, definitely. But if you're not so comfortable, maybe your messages are not exactly engaging. Maybe at the beginning you get maybe two people who reply, and maybe you lose those contacts because you don't know how to engage them. But that's it. You have to keep doing it, and then you get better at it because you realize, oh, I shouldn't have sent this message. Oh, here, I missed this opportunity. So it's going to be a trial and error. And I think that's where people need to build their skills in 2021, is going out there, embracing that some people won't reply or will reject, but that doesn't matter. In the end, it should be your goal in mind of, I want a job in Switzerland in such and such sector. I know I'm going to go through a lot of rejection, a lot of not replying, etc. But I still have my goal, and it will happen. It will happen. If you keep trying at it, you will get results, but you have to keep trying. You can't give up at the first strike, where you don't get a reply. So for all of you who are watching, who are actively looking and probably not getting any kind of result online because on the applicant tracking system, because you don't have experience in Switzerland, for most of you, you're in another country, your effectiveness applying online with job boards is going to be very low. That's just a reality. So if you really want to work in Switzerland, if that's your dream and your goal and you want it 100%, then you're going to have to go outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to do what most people won't dare to do. You're going to have to be different, be original, find a different way of connecting with people. So really, that's what it's about. And then the work permit and everything else will fall into place, because once you have a job offer, you don't need so much to work hard on, what do I need to do to get a permit? The permit will be done for you by your company. So your focus shouldn't be so much about the permit, but more about, what's my best option in Switzerland? Really have a super focused market. Now try to connect with these people, try to build relationships, so that when a job does open, then you're in the best spot to be hired and be selected. And you have already built relationships with people who are interested in you, want to support your application. But trying to go directly on job boards and push your resume as an unknown entity, meaning you don't have history, you don't have any contacts in Switzerland to support your resume, that's going to be really a chance out of a million. So I really discourage people to do that, and encourage, again, to go out of the comfort zone and to build the relationships first. And then when you build the relationships, opportunities will start coming your way via those individuals or their networks. And then you will be more visible on the hidden market. And you will have information that even the locals don't necessarily have because they're not connected. So the magic of being connected to the right people in the right places is just making a whole different ball game in the recruitment arena. And that's really how it works in Switzerland. It's who you know, who you're connected with, And then you will get those opportunities in your eyes or under your eyes that even the local markets don't see. So that's really a much better way. But again, it is really, really laser focused. So that's what I'm teaching people to do right now, because I do see that the job boards and the applicant tracking systems do not work for expats. Unless maybe you're already in Switzerland and you're super focused in what you do, you're a young professional, then maybe I would keep doing that, in your job search. But I would say for most of the people who are outside of this criteria, meaning they're more senior, they have non-typical profiles, they're returning to work, they're abroad, which is the case of 99% of the people who contact me, then the job boards won't work for them. Just single point blank, it won't work. So you have to go outside of that. It's, you have to tell yourself, okay, this is not it for me. And it's tough because, again, it's the comfort zone of applying online, but it's not going to work for you. So you have to use alternative strategies where you go out there, you take more risks, but then the returns are higher. It's just like finance. If you go with something that everyone does, which is to put the money in the safest spot, you're not going to get a lot of returns, and probably it's almost not worth it. But if you take a bit of a risk, I'm thinking now, maybe it's a bad example, but I'm thinking about crypto money right now. Well, people who dare to take a bit of risk now are really getting like 10x, 20x their return. So that's the way it works in life. People who are more daring, people who go in the unknown, take a little bit of a step in the unknown frontier, they get the best rewards. So think about that when you're looking at your job search strategy right now, besides the work permit, and see how you can take a bit more risk to be seen a bit more, to be considered, and to have a chance to strike some interviews other than online, which again is not going to be ideal. So I'm just checking to see if you have more questions. Again, I will post the links of the permit processes and all that below after the streaming. Anyone has feedback or share an experience that they've had with permits or applying online or what have you? Okay, if no more questions, I will close the streaming and invite you to connect next week, where we'll go more in depth on the laser focus strategy to connect with people inside companies and really open up more space there, than just trying to limit yourself to what you see online, which again is going to be very limited because first of all, it's only a part of the market. And second of all, because it's the visible market, that's where everyone is going to send their application. So it will be quite competitive for you. Okay, so I will get going. Thank you very much for connecting this morning to participate in the chat. Very good questions. And feel free also to check the information I will post below. Don't hesitate to come back to me if you have more insights or questions and things like that after the fact. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks.